Well, hello and welcome to the show. My name is Mike, and I'm a responsible adult. And I'm here with my brother Dan,
Hello.
and he's beginning to regret not getting the waffles. We're continuing our conversation of The West Wing, Season 1. Come with us. Let's pull some big ideas off the small screen. This is ReRun Retrospect. Well, thank you again for joining us here on the show, where Dan and I are continuing our watch through of West Wing Season 1. This particular show, we're discussing Season 1, Episode 20, which is Mandatory Minimums. This was written by Aaron Sorkin, directed by Robert Berlinger, and stars the awesome cast there. It aired on May the 3rd, 2000. To kind of keep ourselves from rambling and bring some civility to the show, we like to bust it up into segments. Our first segment is State of the Union, and in State of the Union we talk about two things. First thing is we will give a synopsis of the episode. We always like to do that. We know not everybody's watching along, so it allows them to kind of get some context for what we're talking about. But we also like to give a little trivia kind of nugget of what was going on at the time that this aired. So interesting enough, Dan, May 3rd, 2000. First off, May 3rd is our father's birthday. So then I don't think anybody is real interested in that, but that's the case. It is James Brown's birthday. So there's so that's kind of, I'm sure he feels good.
Another legend.
Absolutely. On and on. I would get up and do the little dance, but nobody really wants to see that. And then so I know a lot of times in our State of the Union, we like to do either entertainment or sports references because it's easy for people to think back to that time or whatever. That's not what I have this time. This time, I thought this one kind of hits close to home because on May 3rd, 2000, the very first geocaching coordinates were uploaded onto the internet. So literally the sport of geocaching. Have you ever been geocaching?
Yeah, no, that's cool. I did it for about 3 weeks, and it was just like places around East Atlanta. But I mean, it's definitely a cool thing.
Absolutely. My family has actually enjoyed doing geocaching. Got turned on to it from my mother-in-law. I guess she was the first one that found out about it. Not a lot of times you get to say positive stuff comes out of your in-laws' interactions, but this was actually really good. And I'm just kidding. I love my mother-in-law. But she turned us onto it, and we would do it. I mean, we kind of go through phases where we'll get real into it. It's kind of awesome because the whole family gets to do something. And if you're unfamiliar with it, there are a number of different apps and websites and where you use GPS coordinates and clues to find these little, some of them can be teeny tiny little, like almost like pillboxes. Some of them can be large ammo boxes or even bigger. And you get to log the fact that you were there. It's almost like a scavenger hunt that on a very, very large scale. So a lot of fun. I enjoy that when the family's able to get together and go and do that. So, all right. So Dan, as far as this episode of The West Wing, why don't you go ahead and read for us the synopsis? We're pulling this right off the IMDB website. Dan, I'll go ahead and tell you that there's not an author credited. We always like to credit, sometimes the users will be the ones who write this, but that's not the case here. And that's probably why we have such a short one. But go ahead and let us know what it says on the site.
Yeah, it's short and sweet. It just says, a newly energized administration prepares to take on soft money, increase addiction treatment, and remove mandatory minimum sentencing.
All right, so that closes out the State of the Union, moves us to the next segment of the show, which is called the Filibuster. The Filibuster is kind of the meat and potatoes of our show where Dan and I talk about what we liked and what we didn't like. Dan, this episode, obviously, we know how the end of the last episode ended. It was on a very emotional high note. They had a ton of stuff go wrong, and then you kind of had this President and Leo pep talk, let Bartlett be Bartlett. And I think it's very interesting to me that they come out of that, and if I'm honest, I feel like the staff kind of moves out from that pep talk and they start being extremely arrogant. It seems like a lot of their interactions, especially with Josh, the whole opening.
Yeah, I was about to say, Josh he's kind of been arrogant the whole season, right? But this episode, he really comes full circle.
Right. It was a great open to the episode. The way that whole thing goes down, the awkwardness, and I think it's very funny that Sam by far is the most socially awkward of the three brothers, as well as on the. No, I'm just kidding. On the showboat, but Bravo's character is the one and he's actually trying to pump up Josh and be like, you might be intimidated by this guy. I was like, that you don't have to worry about Josh, which Toby rightly recognizes. But I thought it was a good episode. It was a good way to start the episode. It also kind of clued us into the fact that there's a different attitude around the West Wing right now than what we've been seeing the last few episodes, where they seem to just be having some things that are going wrong.
Yeah, and early in the episode, it's kind of weird for me, like CJ turning on Danny. Like, I didn't see that coming at all. So, like, that arrogance there is like, yeah, you're the press, and I'm going to show you what power I have over you. Kind of works into that theme you were talking about with just, we're better than you guys, and we know what's going on, and we have the power.
All right, so I think there are two storylines that I think coincide with what you're talking about there. You're absolutely right. CJ's, what I'm gonna say is extremely immature reaction that she's having. But I also understand that people don't always act mature after they've been attacked, and she very much felt like she was attacked. It felt like a violation that someone who she was close to, even though it's in the press corps and all that kind of stuff, was willing to move forward with the Mandy story. Like, I don't know that that's necessarily as immature as kind of the way
Mandy's got to pay the piper. CJ should have known before she found out from Danny. So
I agree, and I feel like
for the course, in my view. I don't know.
Sure, but I don't know that Mandy has to pay the piper. This is, again, the fault is on the staff of not vetting her the way they should have when they brought her on. Not on the fact that she did this. I don't know. Hindsight's 2020, and so when we kind of talk about when we're talking about things like this, I just felt like it was I agree with what Danny's critique of them in the episode when it all kind of came to a head was spot on, and they're really the ones who dropped the ball. I have to call out Josh too. Not only do we see this cocky side, but there's also a little immaturity in this whole interaction with Joey Lucas, the way that he's pursuing her and his idea of, I'm going to show her who's boss and all that kind of stuff. I'm just like, bro, you're going to need to leave this alone because I was embarrassed for him. I mean, it's extremely transparent why he's acting the way that he is and how he's doing it. And I'm just like, this is so dumb. But also, I guess it's so dumb it's a little charming. Maybe.
Well, they brought in Donna in there. Donna made fun of him for the whole suit thing. That was very well done, very well written. It makes you like Donna more. And then they brought in Charlie. And I'm sitting there going, I don't see a scenario where an older man is getting advice from a younger man about dating or pursuing a woman. Charlie does the whole down. She's a fine lady or a fine woman. Right. I forget what he keeps saying.
I can help you out, Josh. She's a fine lady. I have a theory. Like,
what do you know? Just because you're dating the president's daughter doesn't make you some authority. Nope. And here you got Josh.
We even talked about it. Remember when he got pinned against the wall in the middle of the West Wing? He totally thought he was part of that, right? And so now he's walking around and he's like, you know what? I'm just the man. I'm just going to help everybody with women. So I totally think when we talk about the staff kind of having this overconfidence because of the let Bartlett be Bartlett pep talk, Charlie is totally experiencing some overconfidence because Zoe took control of the relationship.
Well, and also he's like the president's right-hand man, right? But he like comes into the room when they're having the meeting and he's like, Josh, she's here. It was kind of funny that way.
Yes.
And let's continue the theme there since we're talking about Josh and Joey. Joey's translator. He's with her all the time, right?
Yeah.
And I can only assume he makes enough money to justify that career, right?
Right.
And he does a very good job. He's always with this very high-profile woman with a disability to help her communicate with the people around her. But he doesn't have the wherewithal to, when she signs or says that she's not sleeping with Q anymore.
To not say it so loud.
Yeah, like announce it to the room. He doesn't know to like walk up to Josh and be like, hey, she just wants you to know. By the way, let me just put this out here.
I totally think Joey Lucas did that on purpose. I don't know if there's a way that you
that was part of her signing. She's like, you better say this shit so everyone can hear.
She did the, she's like, when I do like this, it means megaphone or whatever. I'm not familiar with signing at all, but I mean, I think it was in direct response to the fact that he was coming in with so much bravado and everything that he was kind of portraying, like he wanted to be like, this is my turf and it's my. So she came in and she intentionally wanted to throw him off that shtick that he kind of had. You're right. I don't know how he knows it, but it makes for good television when she calls
right. Exactly. It makes for good television, not realistic,
right.
But it was fun to watch. It was fun to watch, and you're cheering for Joey. I think in that moment, you're like, why is Josh Joey's acting this way?
It is, and we've kind of gone the full gamut. It seems like, I don't know if they were doing screen tests or whatever, but we started out with, is there going to be a rekindling of Josh and Mandy? And, Josh and Donna's relationship is interesting. And it's like they can't figure out exactly how that part of Josh's life, how they kind of want it to go. It seems like it's very disjointed. Unlike a new character that we did get to see in this episode, which
Toby's wife comes out of nowhere. I mean, what a power couple.
Yes, absolutely.
She's a congresswoman, and I can only assume she was when they got divorced.
We have to be correct.
I have no idea.
They are divorced. It is his ex-wife, right?
Right. Well, I mean, that's what I mean by a power couple. I would assume that they were together when she was a congresswoman. Who knows? We don't have any background on her.
Right.
But yeah, that came out of nowhere, which makes me feel like this is, a great writer like Sorkin. They're still leading up to something big, and I haven't seen the last 2 episodes, so I mean, the ball is rolling, right? We're about to get the avalanche. I think. I mean, I would assume so.
Sure. Yeah, I thought that was. I think that again, the way that they're portraying Toby's ex, Andy, is such a great counterbalance to kind of the sarcasm, the intensity, just the general chip on the shoulder. Feel that super intelligent, but also a little intimidating, the way that I think that Toby comes off, because he can be so confrontational, and she comes with an equal amount of intellect, is not intimidated by the intellect or anything like that, but is also much more easygoing and is totally unaffected by the gruff. And I like the way that played off of each other. It reminded me, in our podcast, we started our podcast watching a show from the BBC called Sherlock, and they introduced a character that was Watson's wife later on into the show. And it to me, it almost had the same kind of power. Now, I don't think she's projecting herself to be that consistent of a character, but as far as I guess having credibility, which you don't get a lot of times when you have character introductions. She instantly had credibility because of how well she interacted with Toby, who we have a lot of development with. And I just thought that was really, really kudos. I enjoyed that.
Well, they have that baseball thing going on between her and him. And I kind of laughed a little bit thinking like, yeah, man, she's out of your league. Like what other baseball references can I come up with? Just talking about the dynamic between the two of them. So yeah, that was fun. And, humanizes Toby more. I mean, he's arguably, I think, one of the more, can't think of the word, like the character you just identify with more in the show than anyone else. Relatable. There you go. Yeah. He would know the word, and he would make fun of Sam for not knowing it.
That's right.
While he was writing, but yeah, that character, this ex-wife thing, and you see him just dealing with. He was so disappointed that he even had to go and have that interaction with her. Right? He's like, "You're describing someone I used to be married to." Obviously, he knows what's happening, and that was all orchestrated for her to push her platform that she was about not term limits, mandatory sentencing. So
yeah, mandatory minimums, right? Yeah,
so
just the title of the show.
Yeah, I know. That's why I remembered. I was like, I read that.
Sure.
So yeah, it was done well. I enjoyed it, even though like it was a curveball. No one saw this coming. I would equate it a little bit to Leo's storyline with his divorce, where I'm like, Leo's divorce storyline did not interest me at all, whereas Toby's with his ex-wife seems to be a better narrative, I guess.
Sure. And also, not only do we see that this, very intricate relationship Toby has with his ex, but apparently also with Pi. Pi apparently is important
his
to
weakness.
Toby. And so he totally put up the strong front, but make no mistake, she was not leaving with that Pi. he was going to have it. And then she gave in pretty easily. I kind of, which I guess that was the kind of the give and take of the relationship. But I kind of thought she'd push back. No, you had your chance. There's no Pie for you. So, okay. So we talk, CJ's kind of, as much as I would say, I'm a little frustrated at how bad she is lashing out immaturely at Danny, seeing her vulnerability and how she's really trying to make right the mistake she makes early on in the episode when she says that the president wasn't under legal obligation.
Right, and I felt that was...
Wait. We need to, I'm just going to let you know, I want you to measure your words here, because your opinion of the Jackal has not been received very well. We did some polling, and we found out that our listeners, they're pissed at me. That's how pissed they are at you. So I need you to be careful here. CJ's a beloved character. We understand the overreaction, but don't be attacking things like the Jackal and things that, that's just a little brotherly advice from me to you.
Fair enough, but I don't feel like her screw up was that big of a deal. I feel like it was, even when I was watching, I was like, can't she just go in the next day and say, hey, I made a poor, or I chose my words poorly, or I was misinformed, but I guess that's the problem too, right? You can't look like you make any errors when you're in that position.
Well, you're right. The political arena is so much about perception, and you're literally, by making that mistake, you're showing a perception of just ineptitude. And I think that's what, especially they're coming off this big push of the Bartlett be Bartlett, and we're not going to be scared of these legislative agendas, and we're going to take all this head on. The last thing we can look like is that we don't actually know what we're doing. And I think that's what
Bush League.
It's not
Bush League.
100%. Bush League. So I think that's what the push was. But I think her response to it was, in contrast to being a little pouty, that I think she, her response to making the mistake was, she owned it. She went to the people and apologized for it, even to the point you kind of have that fatherly moment with everybody in the president's bedroom, where he's just kind of like, kind of explaining that, yeah, you're going 100 miles an hour. There's going to be time things mess up. So I like that. I believe that was redeeming for CJ for me in this episode.
Yeah, and bringing up Bartlett in the bedroom where they all come knocking in at the door during this moment of crisis, I guess. He is the calming voice, which you need that, and I definitely think he's playing a father figure. I mean, the only person he doesn't play a father figure to is probably Leo, right?
Right. They're more kind of brothers in arms.
Right. So seeing him being very forgiving, he accepts CJ's apology, but doesn't really want to. It says there's no reason for her to even do it. Just makes you like Bartlett more. You're kind of cheering for him. You're wondering why he's at 43%, right? So we're going to find out, I think, in these next 2 episodes. Something big's going to happen. And with me saying that, Lori's come full circle now, right? With Sam.
Right.
And
we got a reference to Lori that we haven't really had anything like that.
Toby and Josh totally laugh at Sam, right? They just laugh at him. They're like, he knows about Lori. You don't even know that he knows about Lori.
Right.
And Sam gets all upset, and he says to Bartlett, I'm hot as a pistol, which, okay, I don't know if I've heard that before. Or the
Not from
other term
somebody
he
in their
said that his
30s.
mother said all the time. I don't know.
Right.
But Lori's come full circle.
Even.
And I think I said this early on. I might even go back to listen to some of our old podcasts, like first, second, or third episode, where I was like, this is going to be a big issue. So we'll see what happens. Think something will. The next two.
So that's an official prediction from you that something
Yeah,
with
I
Lori
know.
is.
Yeah, and we've talked about not wanting to make predictions. Obviously, you can't because you've seen it, but I haven't. I've not seen the next two episodes.
You think it happens before the end of the season? You think that this may be part of the big, I mean, most television shows try and finish seasons on,
a cliffhanger, kind of
cliffhanger, or just something dramatic twist, whatever. You think that that's what we're going to see here?
I feel like since she was mentioned this episode, she has to come back in the next episode or two. But I could be wrong. We'll find out.
CJ steps up and takes the bullet and having to have the conversation with Mandy that, hey, we don't want you in the room right now and all that kind of stuff.
Something's going to happen with Mandy too.
Well, okay. And as soon as that happens, even the first time, I can be honest here, even the first time watching the show, the first time you're like, okay, they're finally going to do something about it. But then we kind of get that in the bedroom, the president says, hey, she was doing her job. We're not going to keep doing this. Take her off the bench. Same thing with Danny, and kind of corrects these reactions that the staff were having. And Leo owns up and says, I'm the one who said she didn't need to be in the room and all that kind of stuff. And that's fine. So I guess I kind of turned around on that when I literally at the beginning of the episode, I'm like, okay, here we go. Everything's starting to the point where I'm not so sure now at the end of the episode that this is the beginning of the end and all that kind of stuff. Well, what do you think about, what are they trying to tell us about the Mandy? Because that's the only thing we got with Mandy was that interaction with CJ. And it really
which was done well. I thought that CJ, the actress's name, I can't think of it off the top of my head. She did so well acting out the thing with Mandy and with Danny. Like they both have very intense moments, right?
Right.
But I'm still sitting here wondering why she's in the opening credits. And I don't think it's a spoiler. Tell me this. In the second season, is she a more developed character and not just popping in, making people mad every once in a while?
I really can't.
You don't have to tell me. I'm just saying, like,
right.
It's got to be something. There's got to be something going on.
Right. So. I'm sure we will have that. We'll have that. We will have that conversation during the finale of. I'm not saying that something's going to happen and that it'll change how we have that conversation. It's going to be the exact conversation we need to have right now. We'll have during the finale of season 1. I think that'll be appropriate at that time. Yeah, I guess I enjoyed the fact that we got a little bit of everybody, a teeny tiny bit of Mandy, which I don't mind. The whole, even though we didn't get a lot of Charlie, I enjoyed that Charlie. I enjoyed.
Oh yeah, giving him some gruff to Josh. That's nice.
It's a fine looking woman, Josh. So, and then I'll also say this: I enjoyed Margaret. I think we're really starting to kind of get to see this quirky personality that Margaret has, and her and Leo's relationship is just as someone who has an assistant, and how he acts like he can get so frustrated with her, but you still know that there's a kindredness to their working relationship. That I'd credit Sorkin here in the fact that I feel like the person with the position, whether it's CJ and her assistant, or whether it's the president in Landingham, Leo with Margaret, Josh with Donna, even Sam and Toby, and they react, and it's weird because Sam and Toby, it's almost like they have the same assistants. They kind of have a pool of assistants that help the communications office, not one assigned specifically to the other or whatever. But they show those relationships as being relationships of respect. You don't see them being very dismissive. Every once in a while you can see, maybe they'll say something you're like, maybe that's a little condescending, but I don't know. Sometimes I feel like we get a little hung up on some of that stuff where, and I guess I just enjoy seeing those good working relationships, where you don't always see those depicted in the right way. Either the other the other employees that don't have the quote unquote position are minimized, and that's not the case here. I mean, very much this workplace, obviously there's
you got Bartlett and Miss Landingham can speak truth to the president. So yeah,
yeah. And that's good. I think it was unique, but I also think it's more true to how actual workplaces are. Everybody's there trying to do whatever their portfolio calls them to do, and it's not so much. I mean, I'm sure there's exceptions to every rule and stereotype and all that kind of stuff. So, whatever. But I just enjoyed that. I think this episode as a whole, I don't know. I mean, is there anything else filibuster wise you kind of want to talk about? Because I feel like I'm moving into the
one more real quick, and I keep bringing this up that I hate that this show debuted in 1999. It ran through 2006, and here I am watching the episode from 2000, May of 2000, and one of the arguments was one of them saying "science is science," and I'm just like sitting here in 2021 going, "Gosh, we're still having." This discussion, can we please move on? But right. We haven't. So that was my last thing. Everything else has been checked off for me.
All right, so it closes down the filibuster and it moves us to the next segment, which is the caucus. And in the caucus, that's where Dan and I vote on whether we liked or disliked the episode. We have three options. We can say yay, meaning we like the episode. We can abstain, meaning we're on the fence, or we can say nay, saying that we didn't like it. Dan, I'm going to let you go first here. How do you vote on this episode?
So I wasn't going to decide until we had this discussion. I was either going to go, yeah, yay, or I was going to say an enthusiastic abstain, like hopeful. My vote is a yay, because I go, this episode is building towards something. It does it very well. It's a fun episode to watch. There weren't moments where some characters dancing to a song I've never heard of, or, not, all those things were cut out. So
really, are you really going to come back and say negative? I mean, is it good to get that off your chest there, Pokey? I mean, we've already talked about the Jackal's off limits. It's a West Wing institution. You cannot be attacking it like this.
I'm just justifying my vote. So I am going to go yay. It's just a solid yay, and I see it as this is building up to the last two episodes, and I hope the last two episodes are great, and I think this is the step to get there. Anyway, what's yours?
Well, I appreciate that, and strangely enough, it's going to be hard for me to justify my vote and then not sound like I'm just absolutely copying you. But this was my own decision. I did this before you gave your influence, and making decisions is my birthright. It's what I'm allowed to do, and I was exactly like you in the voting, not necessarily in my reasoning. So I am teetering right in between a pretty positive abstain, like I'm on the top side of abstain to the bottom side of yay. And just to be different, I will say that I'm going to be on that positive side of abstain. And here's the reason. The reason is we are 20 episodes into season 1, and it's not just each one of these episodes as I'm voting for them is not just on the merits of the episode as a standalone piece. There's some comparison that has to go on, and so I don't think that this was a bad episode at all. This was this didn't have any wow moments. But it was entertaining to watch the characters that we love. Watching Toby interact with Andy is phenomenal. I just really, really enjoy that. Even though I felt like it was immature and all this kind of stuff, the swings that Josh goes through of being overconfident to trying to overcompensate in his pursuit of Joey, to how he finally comes back and is just genuine at the end, all that's enjoyable. But when we compare it to episodes we've already seen, like In Excelsis Deo, the Christmas episode, and finding out about Bartlett's MS and all those other ones. It's not a bad episode at all, but it probably is a little middle of the road. And I think that makes sense for exactly what you said. We're ramping up to go to the end of the season. We always know television shows like to do something surprising toward the end, and that's probably what we're going to get here. And this is what I would say is the quiet before the storm, which makes sense when it's the next to last episode of the season. So you're barely a yay. I am barely not a yay into the abstain. And we have yet again another situation where I'm voting just a smidge lower than Dan, which, if anything, should show that we at least tell him the truth, because I don't think we could have planned this the way that it goes. So that closes down the caucus, and our final segment of the show is On the Record. On the Record is just where throughout the show I've been trying to insert quotes from the episode into our normal conversation. I do it sometimes I'm sneaky, sometimes it's awkward or whatever. It is a lot of fun. We enjoy kind of playing that game. We enjoy dialogue. And so, Dan, I was able to get a few in this one, even though I felt like they were pretty obvious. But this episode, even though not a lot of plot twists, did have a lot of good dialogue. So what were you able to catch me
in? Responsible adult. Doesn't Toby say that to his ex-wife about getting on the blanket or something?
That's exactly when. So she's like, come sit next to me. He's like, no, I'm a responsible adult.
You should come sit next to me.
I'm wearing a suit.
So am I.
I'm a responsible adult.
Something
after talking about the fact that he was wearing a suit.
Right. Something about waffles.
Yes. I thought that was just a quirky little line. Do you know when it happened? Who said it and when it happened?
It was shoot. It wasn't the president. It was
It wasn't a man.
It wasn't. Oh, then I don't know.
It was Donna. Remember the breakfast meeting that they all had? They were all there with their, right? So Donna, after apparently they had ordered while somebody was having part of a conversation, and then, moves on, and then she's sitting there and she just looks up and is like, I'm beginning to regret not getting the waffles. It was just kind of a quirky, weird. I would never say that when I was getting a free breakfast. I would just be happy with whatever I was going to get. So,
It's a nice suit.
Sure, it's a nice suit. It's his Joey Lucas.
Donna!
I'm beginning to regret not getting the waffles.
I am beginning to regret having hired any of you.
I thought it was fun.
Had a nice place too. That place seemed pretty nice. Sitting outside, enjoying the sunshine. Measured words.
No.
Oh, you said that, and I was like, "That's got to be a quote." But I don't ever remember you saying something like that ever in the 41 years I've known you. And,
we've never been recording shows like this, so you pull out the big guns.
My mind works that way.
Yes. Do you know who said
but
that?
I don't. Was it Sam? I don't remember who said it.
No, Margaret said that after she.
Oh yeah, Margaret. Yeah.
Margaret!
Yes.
The list of names I gave you before.
Dalton Dawson, Foxworthy Greer, Morgenthau, Stackhouse, Sugarbaker.
You didn't need to memorize
Couldn't help it.
Okay.
My mind works that way.
Yes, call their offices. I want to see one representative apiece at 2:00.
Again, I really enjoyed the quirkiness between Leo and Margaret. And
yeah, that's when she had that thing memorized. Yeah. Didn't Leo say something about the waffle thing? He got mad about it. He's like, "Why are we discussing waffles?" But I don't know. And then pissed at me.
I don't think it was. Yes, they're pissed at me. That's how pissed they are at you. CJ says that to me.
Yes, CJ.
Yeah.
It was just a memo.
It wasn't just a memo.
The fact that you
Do you
guys
have any idea how pissed people are at you? They're pissed at me. That's how pissed they are at you. They want to know how the hell I didn't know about the memo.
Is that all? I think I had maybe one more.
You probably did.
Making decisions for myself is my birthright.
I remember you saying birthright, but I thought you were just pulling some older brother crap on me.
You hijack my ability to make that decision for myself, Andrea, and making decisions for myself is my birthright.
Good to get that off your chest there, Pokey?
Yes.
No. Toby talks about that when he feels like Andy's kind of steamrolling him about the mandatory minimums when they're walking back. He had just denied himself pie, even though he knew later on in the office he would get the pie.
Yeah, he wanted pie. She knew that too.
Well, right. I mean, it's the way relationships go. So okay, overall, I think it was a good episode. I'm excited to get to push through the next two and see just what your overall thoughts are about the entirety of season 1 of The West Wing, and then finding out how we're gonna do things as we move forward. So again, thanks so much for checking it out. We hope you had as much fun as we did, as we've proved that hindsight's not always 20/20. This is ReRun Retrospect.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of ReRun Retrospect. If you'd like to connect with us, you may email us at rerunretrospect@gmail.com or follow us on Twitter at ReRun Retrospect. We hope you'll join us for our next episode, where we keep pulling big ideas off the small screen.